of Marketing and Namrata. That is Simon. How are we feeling today, Simon?
I'm good, thanks, Nam. How are you doing?
I'm good. Today's a Friday, so I'm extra good.
Yeah, weekend on its way. It's nice and hot here as well this week, so it's going to be.
Yeah.
I've only just come back from holidays, and it's. I've come back to really
Mhm.
nice weather for the next week or so. So, how is it over there?
It's so humid. I cannot begin. When you wait for the sunny time, like the hotness of it all to go away, and then it is followed by humidity, and it's raining all around India, but Delhi. So it's very bad for us because it won't rain, neither would the humidity go away. So I don't know what's happening.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope you get some rain soon. Give me a break. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
nice. Humid and hot. It's not nice.
Yeah, talking about hot things, a recession is a hot topic right now. The economy is not doing well. So what do you think? Like, what does the future look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always hard to predict, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm no economist, but yeah, I think we can all see some difficult times at the moment. Yeah, I think obviously we've got yeah, a lot going on in politics. I mean, over in the UK, our Prime Minister just resigned yesterday, so that's obviously a fairly big moment. I mean, that led to some small positive signs in the economy as it happens, because he's been a bit of a disaster. So that's probably a good thing. But it creates more uncertainty, and no one likes uncertainty when it comes to the economy. So who knows what's going to happen there in the UK. Of course, there's politics around the world that's difficult at the moment. We've of course got the war in Ukraine as well, and what's going to happen with that, and what's going to happen with Russia, and there's a lot of talk around China at the moment as well, creating some instability between China and the US, and the way China is apparently, according to the US and the UK, trying to create a sort of insular system to protect themselves from any sanctions they may get from any of their future actions, which is always a slightly concerning thing to see. And then, of course, there's a cost of living crisis. It's a bit crazy, and we get caused by all of these other problems. See above. It's caused by a lot of that. So it is getting incredibly expensive just to live day to day at the moment, which is hard. And that's having all kinds of effects on people. I heard a story a couple of weeks ago about people having to give away their pets because they can't afford to feed them anymore, which of course is a sad story, but also what impact is that going to have on someone? I mean, if you think about a child growing up that's had a family pet, then they have to lose that family pet. That's going to have a real impact on them mentally, on their mental health, and pets are very good for your mental health, so having to give those away, I mean, these are the interesting areas around the edge of economic impact that people often don't think about. The impact that you get from some of the decisions you have to make when going through these things. So look, it's always difficult to see what the future holds. I've lived through quite a few recessions now, and they're never a great deal of fun, but we've always come out the other side of them, so I'm sure we will. Yeah, I think we've still got a little way to go before we get anywhere near out the other side of this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, the whole political situation right now is very unstable. And the question here would be like, how would it affect marketers specifically? All these changes, there's no
Yeah.
direct impact on them, or will they be like cut off or something? What is going to happen?
Yeah, there's a few ways it affects us as marketers. One of those is that we have to be conscious of the consumer. Right now, that's always the case in marketing, but we need to be very sensitive to what people are going through. As I say, people are having to make tough decisions and sacrifices at the moment, and as a result, what messages you put out to them about spending money and buying things needs to be a little bit sensitive around that. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean you can't say people should buy your products, but you need to be a little bit sensitive around the fact that people might be a little bit harder pushed financially right now. So if you're pushing a premium product, you might want to look at the audience and make sure you are pushing it to an audience that may be financially less affected by cost of living. So someone who's a bit more stable financially, and you might want to be just ethical about pushing any products. It's an easy time to push things like loans when people need money, but obviously you're pushing loans out at a time when the economy is difficult and people are struggling. Ethically is a challenging decision to make. So you don't want to be careful with things like that. So as marketers, being sensitive around what consumers are going through, how they might react to your message based on what you're saying and the conditions they're living in, is something everyone should be thinking about with the campaigns they're either already running or planning. The other thing that happens a lot in recessions is budgets get cut. It's very, very common, and that can be redundancies within the team, or it can be just marketing spend, advertising spend, media spend, and that happens. That's very common. I've seen that happen in every recession that I've seen over the last few years, and obviously we've had 2 or 3 in the last 25 years when I've been working. I've seen that consistently happen with all of them. I think that's it's not always the right thing to do. It can be. I'm not suggesting no one should cut budgets during recessions. As consumers spend less, companies have less money, and therefore you need to tackle that one way or another. And it's certainly easier to just say, okay, we're spending £100,000 on media, but in marketing, let's spend £50,000, and boom, straight away you saved £50,000. It's easy, right? It's easy to do that. However, during recessions, what you find is that business generally goes down, and you struggle often for many companies will struggle for sales and leads during that period. I think if that happens, then cutting marketing, of course, makes that situation worse. You end up in a real spiral there. And I've seen many companies, sadly, effectively go out of business in a recession because they chose to cut marketing rather than make some tough decisions around how to cut some operational areas or something that they can pull back on, or even just reduce salaries of their senior team or something like that. Businesses that have often people of the leadership team earning enormous salaries whilst cutting back on marketing means that you're spending heavily on things that just eat money, and you're not spending on the things that generate money. So yeah, I think it's sad to see this. I've already seen a lot of conversations happening around this on social media as well, people talking about their budgets cut. And I know a few businesses that have cut their budgets on marketing, but I would strongly advise, I know it seems simple, it seems obvious, but I would strongly advise people not to cut their budgets on marketing if it's a lead generation piece. Sure, you might want to cut it on some of your branding work, perhaps a little bit, not too much, because you don't want to lose the presence of your brand. You might want to cut it back on some of the investment on improvements you were going to make, and make those improvements a bit later, maybe to tech platforms and things like that. Maybe delay that work a little bit. Not ideal. Again, none of these would be recommendations, but if you're going to cut back, I would cut back on things that aren't directly going to generate revenue for you. But I wouldn't cut back, if you can afford it in any way at all, I wouldn't cut back on the things that generate business for you. Anything that pulls in leads and sales, I would keep investing in and find other areas to cut back on, because it's too dangerous. And I've seen, as I say, many companies go out of business or significantly decline when they didn't have to, simply because they cut back on marketing rather than being smart and creative about how they do it. So that would be my advice. I think that's what we see coming. That's what I would see coming, and it's wise for a marketer to be prepared for it. But I think the decision makers need to look for other areas to cut, rather than the business generation side of your spend, because that's what you really need to keep going during these difficult times.
Yeah, I think without people discovering your product, you're not going to generate any sales, like no matter how good your product is. And sadly, a lot of companies and people think of marketing as something that is disposable, that can be just switched off like a button or something. Why is that so? Like, why do people consider marketing disposable?
Well, I think those that don't work in marketing, and to be honest, still some people that do work in marketing, don't really understand what marketing is. I think that's the fundamental problem that we have as marketers, and I'm sure many people will understand my point there. I think, you know, when you talk about technology, everyone understands what that is, right? You might not know how to develop a piece of technology, you might not understand it in detail, but you know what is technology and what is not technology. Same with finance, right? You know that there's some numbers here that need to be dealt with. You might not know exactly how to deal with them, but you understand that that is a finance piece of work. Same with sales. I mean, most departments, HR, you know, to do with people, you can understand very simply what it is. I think in marketing, people just don't understand what it is, right? I mean, people think of marketing as advertising. Yeah, if we're spending a load of money on advertising, let's stop spending that money on advertising. It's easy. It's a creative role. We just switch it off and then we just switch it back on again later. You can't do that with technology or with staff. You can't switch them off and switch them back on later. Therefore, we'll do it with marketing. But it just isn't that simple at all. I mean, marketing is entirely about going to market, right? That's obviously where the name comes from. Taking your business to market, and you need to do that. You need to position yourself. You need to price yourself. You need to look at your products. You need to look at your exposure. You need to look at your competition, doing your data analysis. You need to look at the financial side of it. You need to look at the technology side of it. You need to look at the people side of it. I mean, it's a hugely complex area. As you know, you start getting into psychology and you know, all sorts of area, content production. Yeah, of course, there's some design and some advertising within there, but you know, those things that people think about with marketing being, you know, design some pretty adverts and put them out on social media or TV. Yeah, it's maybe 1% of marketing, maybe 1%. So I think you're pulling back on a marketing department, you know, can hurt you not just in the short term, but it can hurt you in the long term. If you pull back on the spend, not just to generate leads, but you know, on actual just overall marketing spend, or shrink the team, you know, you will lose traction against your competition. You'll lose awareness of what's going in the market. You'll lose brand awareness as well. So you know, there's real long-term impacts. As potentially you might even lose SEO as well, which, you know, as you know, will take a long time to bounce back from. You don't just switch that off and on. That can take months and years to really generate traction from. So you know, it's another area that if you pull back, it can really hurt you when the recession is over. It can take you a long time to recover in those areas. So yeah, it's easy to just say, let's just write fewer blogs, let's do fewer adverts, let's just, you know, get rid of the creative team because we don't need to be drawing any pictures during recessions, and it's oversimplify it. But it's really not. It's not that at all, and the impact is complex and very broad. So you know, I think a lot of people find it easier to cut marketing simply because they don't understand the impact of what they're going to cut.
Yeah. So what can marketers do for this? Like, how can marketers help people realize their importance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, sometimes there's nothing you can do, right? Let's be totally honest. Sometimes if you're in a company and your CEO says, I'm cutting your budget, you know, you can go in there and justify and have that conversation, but sometimes that's not going to go anywhere, and you accept that. But I wouldn't be too ready to accept it, I guess is my point. You know, as marketers, we need to justify what we're doing, and partly because of what I just talked about, you know, because people don't understand marketing that well still, and I think this is always going to be a bit of a curse of marketing, but partly because of that, people need to, your marketers need to really show the value in what they're doing, so as people get it, right? You won't always be reporting into someone who's had any marketing experience or training. You know, I've reported into myself heads of marketing, CMOs, certainly, as well as CEOs and various other senior roles over the years, who don't understand the first thing about marketing. You know, I've worked for heads of marketing who have just sort of fallen into the job over the years, and they don't know anything about marketing strategy, or they've never had a marketing education, and they're fairly inexperienced in their role, so they need a lot of help. And when it comes to making these tough decisions, you need to guide them effectively. So the best way to do that in today's world is to use data. Right? Data is our friend in marketing, as we all know. There's a lot of it around. The key is not in the data itself; it's in the insights. It's what the data is telling us. So you know, being able to keep good, strong, accurate reports of everything that you're doing, and being able to demonstrate where things have worked and where things haven't worked, and the value that brings to the organization, is the really critical point. Because if you can demonstrate that spending X will drive Y in revenue or profitability for the business through looking at, we spent this, we got this many, obviously, impressions, clicks, leads, etc. But those leads were converted by the sales team. Obviously, I'm picking a sort of B2B lead gen example here. Converted by the sales team into sales. Those sales last on average, stay with us as customers for a year and a half. Therefore, we generate this sort of revenue from them, or they make these sales make this many purchases for us over their lifetime. We can start to get a view of lifetime value. Therefore, we know that spending this sort of money on this activity generates this revenue for the business and is therefore profitable and gets us a good return on investment. I think if you can demonstrate that, it makes it much easier to go back to your decision makers and say, okay, look, if we switch this off, we're going to be worse off, right? Because this is generating more money than we spend. So I think if you can do that in simple terms, that is the best way to do it. So focus on what you're doing. And I would recommend every marketer to do this now, is focus on what you're doing, and look at how you can show very clearly and justify the money you're spending and the return it brings into the business. If you can do that right now, before you get questioned and before someone comes to you asking you to cut your budgets, then you've already got the evidence to go in and tell that story. Don't wait until someone comes in and says, I'm slashing your budget, and then scramble around trying to justify it, because then it looks very defensive. It's very hard for you. It's very time pressured. You probably won't get there. You're on the back foot, which is never a good place to be. So no nonsense, very simple, very clear. Don't fluff around with, oh, but I got lots of impressions, because the people making decisions around budgets are not going to care about how many impressions you got. They're going to care about the results and the financials. So look at the profitability, look at the effectiveness, look at the return on investment, and demonstrate that the activity you're doing is driving value. And be pragmatic as well. If you are running activity that isn't profitable, then that's something that perhaps you could look at sacrificing, right? Maybe you could say, look, we're running these activities here. You shouldn't slash this because this is profitable for us, but these aren't so much. So yeah, let me turn that off. Let me compromise and say, I'm not going to demand that I keep all my budget. Let me turn these pieces off here that perhaps we can sacrifice for 12 months. But these pieces over here, definitely not. And I think if you show that firm grip on the numbers and the financial impact on the business, it's going to put you in the best possible position for maintaining your budget.
So this whole interview has been a little bit gloomy, I think.
True.
So should we start panicking? Should everybody start panicking, or how should we take it at the moment? Should we relax? What approach should we have?
Should we panic or should we relax? It's probably somewhere in the middle. So don't panic. Don't relax too much. So look, definitely don't panic, right? I think what happens, and we can all roll with it. It's not a problem. So we shouldn't panic in these sort of situations. It's there are going to be challenges ahead, and the best thing to do is direct that energy you might have around your nervousness or panic into work, right? That's always the best way to do it. If you've got nervous energy, if you're concerned, you're worried, push that energy into getting a result that's going to take that worry away, right? Don't be sitting around panicking. Control the situation yourself, and get the results that you need. So no, don't panic. Go out there, do what I just said there of finding the results, building reports, delivering on a financial story that can maintain your budget. But don't panic. But also, like you say, don't relax too much either. Don't sit back and think this isn't going to happen to me. It's all going to be fine, because it does happen. I've been in very small businesses during recessions that have been hard hit, and they've had to make some really tough decisions. I've also been in some very, very big businesses that have a lot of money, big profitability, and they've still made significant cuts during recessions, right? The fact that a company has a lot of money doesn't mean they're not going to make cuts, because the larger the company are, the more focus there is on their profitability from their shareholders, and their performance, and the more impact that has on the wider world. And therefore they need to be really smart around the money they're making as well, not to survive, but to perform according to what their expectations are from their shareholders. So yeah, don't relax too much. Focus on driving results. Make sure you're really laser focused on that, and being able to show that you're driving those results. and you put yourself in your best possible position.
Yeah, so you're hanging us all in the middle, right? Not to relax, neither to panic. And thank you for this advice. I hope everybody is able to survive this recession and be okay, like in the long term. And yes, thank you so much for listening, and subscribe us on YouTube and follow for more marketing tips and advice. Thank you.